Hey, friends, it's Dr. Cynthia. And here in America, we love our coffee. In fact, in 2025, Starbucks sales were about 27 billion, and all coffee everywhere in America was about 80 billion. And when something that central starts to stop working the way it used to, when coffee barely lifts your fatigue, or your body feels like it only moves with coffee and then that stops working, it's worth listening. If you've ever thought, why does my coffee barely touch my fatigue anymore? Or I can't even poop without coffee, then this is for you. I was a systems engineer before I was a TCM doc, and I like to explain Chinese medicine using the ocean because it's a way to understand the system of the body. Your body, like an ocean, is always regulating depth, temperature, and currents. Yin is the deep, cooling reserves that give stability, and yang is the movement, warmth, and response at the surface. When there's enough depth, waves are no problem. But when the ocean is shallow, even small waves feel overwhelming and can knock you down. In this way, we can see symptoms are messages from your inner ocean asking for different conditions. And when we listen, balance can return. Today, we're going to explore why coffee stops working through the lens of your inner ocean and your marine metabolic type. I'll explain that in a little bit. And specifically, we're going to talk about what caffeine is really doing in your system. We're going to talk about cortisol dumping and why you crash after the buzz, even if it's a few hours later. And we're going to talk about mold in coffee, especially ochratoxin A and aflatoxins, and why coffee can make you poop and why that can backfire over time. We're going to talk about some concepts like dampness and yin and yang and your gut as a little inlet off your ocean, and how this plays out in silky sharks, octopi, and pufferfish, if you're familiar with those metabolic types. And also what the age and culture of our country have to do with our choice and favorite drink. By the end, I want you to learn how to decode the weather reports of your inner ocean to find your inner dolphin, that lovable, adaptable, playful, smart, and fun creature that's always inside of you. So let's get started. Your inner ocean. Think of your body as your inner ocean. And an ocean is always regulating temperature, depth, pressure, and currents. It has yin and yang. Yin is the depth, the cooling, the reserves, the deep, quiet water that holds the stable temperature and the big, slow currents. It's cold and it's dark. Yang is the motion and the heat and the response, the waves, the tides, and the surface sparkle. Health isn't about choosing yin or yang. Health is about being able to swim at the right depth, at the right time, with the right energy. So, like a great surfer or a dolphin. Now, what is dampness in ocean language? Picture a bay where the water is murky and algae overflows, and there's sludge and trash along the shore, or the current is thick and deep. That patch of ocean isn't more water in a good way, but instead it's thick and heavy and stagnant. That's dampness. In your body, dampness feels like heaviness in your limbs, brain fog, like you're moving through water, bloating, puffiness, or edema, and sticky weight, especially around the middle. Now, dampness has a job. It's actually protecting you from inflammation in your body. So it's still your body being your best friend. In the ocean, of course, the stagnation may be protecting you from the toxins that are inside of that. Now, layer in our three little truths about the ocean. If there's no current, there's stagnation, things don't move, and that's a lack of yang. If there's no depth, there's overheating. Shallow water heats up fast, and that's depleted yin. And no surface movement equals suffocation. The water can't breathe, and everything feels flat and dull. Coffee, sugar, and our go, go, go culture constantly try to create more waves, more yang, on top of oceans that may already be shallow or congested. Now, zoom out, and I want you to think about how old America is. We're kind of a teenager. We're about 250 years old. On the world ocean timeline, that makes us more like a teenager than an elder seaman. And teenagers love big oceans. They love big waves, they love speed, and they love spectacle. And that's where we are. Here in America, as our culture, we glorify the yang energy right now at this time in our development. And that looks like hustle and productivity and intensity. And so you'll hear us say things like, I can sleep when I'm dead, or more is better, or no days off. Deep currents look like rest or elders' wisdom or long-term planning. Yin practices look like warm food, quiet evenings, and true recovery. So we build a health culture that praises stimulants like coffee and energy drinks like Monster and Red Bull and 5-Hour Energy. Some of those actually have toxins in them, things that are toxic to most people, little bits of cyanide. So you get sicker as you take them. And we normalize chronic stress as success. And we treat rest like it's a reward that we have to earn instead of it being an important part of our daily infrastructure. Now, take that teenage culture that worships all of this yang energy and put it inside a midlife or older body whose yin is naturally declining, like that ocean is getting more shallow. And especially, you can think about this in a woman, but it happens in gentlemen too. And now you're starting to see the conflict that happens. Your ocean needs more depth, more yin, more recovery, but your culture keeps yelling for bigger waves. Coffee is one of the most socially acceptable ways we try to obey that cultural wave worship. So let's talk about what coffee really does, because there's a reason that you like to drink it. So one of those is that it's a mood-enhancing drug. And that means that when you drink coffee, caffeine blocks adenosine, which is your I'm tired, let me rest signal. It ramps up adrenaline and cortisol, which are your stress hormones. And it gives a temporary dopamine bump so that you feel hopeful and motivated. And if your yin is deep and your system is resilient, that can feel so good. Your yin is generally deeper when you're younger. So we tend to get into the habit here in America of leaning into coffee when we're younger in order to pull off big tasks. Or I know I used it for staying up studying for exams when I was in college. The one night that I didn't usually drink diet drinks, but like everybody talked about Diet Coke being great for staying awake. So I combined coffee and Jolt Cola. It wasn't Diet Coke, it was Jolt Cola and NoDoz. It just zonked my adrenals and I went straight to sleep. I didn't have anything left. So my yin wasn't deep enough for all of those intense chemicals. Now, if you're already living as a silky shark or an octopus, and those metabolic types are the ones that are chronically stressed and or under-rested, then your cortisol curve is often distorted. So you're going to wake up tired and you're going to feel like you need to have coffee as soon as you wake up. You hit that coffee on an empty stomach your adrenals dump cortisol fast. Your heart races and you feel wired. And then your blood sugar is going to spike and insulin rushes in. And then you crash 1 to 3 hours later, and you'll probably have brain fog or irritability or cravings. Now, I also want to honor the psycho-emotional reasons that we may sometimes find ourselves in this place. I know when I went through my dad passing, there were times when I woke up, I still didn't really lean into coffee, but there were other caffeine things that I leaned into during that time because I didn't feel like moving when I woke up in the morning. And even though I passionately love my work and I passionately love getting to help people the way I do. So, um, if there is something psycho-emotionally that's nagging at you, I did this for like a week or a couple weeks. But if there's something that's nagging at you on the inside, then it's worth honoring that exploration and digging into what's might really be internally pulling you off balance. Whether it's physiological or they're psycho-emotional, eventually over time, your body's going to say, I can't keep doing this. We are out of depth. Your neuroreceptors start to change, and the same coffee does less. So you're going to feel like you need more until eventually it, quote unquote, stops working. There's a couple other things about coffee that a lot of people don't know or may have heard once and forgotten. And these are the invaders, mold in coffee. So almost every coffee on the market, there's a couple of exceptions, but almost every coffee, even if it says organic, has mold and mycotoxins in it. And the two most popular are ochratoxin A, and that's associated with kidney depletion and immune stress and oxidative stress. It also is associated with DNA damage, and it inhibits new neuron formations in parts of the brain linked to memory. The second one is aflatoxin, and this is produced by certain aspergillus molds, which can also be in your house. This is known to be toxic and potentially carcinogenic, and it's linked to both dementia and Alzheimer's, especially if you live in a damp climate that's prone to mold. You're probably getting a lot of exposure to this just in the environment. And if your immune system, if your ocean is nice and balanced, then you may be pretty resilient to that. However, if you're drinking in coffee every day, then that immune system is going to tend to get less resilient in terms of mold because it's just so much. These show up when beans are grown, stored, or shipped in warm, damp conditions without rigorous testing. And like I said, almost every coffee has these toxins in it. Functionally, these mycotoxins are like pollution in your inner ocean. They add to inflammation. They stress the liver and the detox pathways, and they worsen fatigue and brain fog. We can call that damp toxin in the water. So thick, hot, murky tides that are hard to clear. Here in Florida, we have red tide on occasion, and it's just awful. You're looking forward to going to the beach and enjoying the outing with your friends and the sunshine and the sparkle or sunset on the beach, and you get there and it smells like death because that's what it is. It's all these fish dying. That is a way to think of like damp toxin in the water. And it is attributed to an overproduction of a particular type of algae, which is considered a damp toxin. So your simple morning coffee might actually be caffeine causing that cortisol dump, sugar and cream adding damp and blood sugar swings, and then mycotoxins being that toxic sludge in the bay. And your ocean is saying enough. And then we add cream and sugar. I don't know about you, But my first cup of coffee had lots of cream and sugar in it. And that's how most Americans drink it. In some way, shape, or form, some kind of sweetener, some kind of creamer. Most people aren't drinking clean, black, tested coffee after a good breakfast. And a lot of my clients report that if they have to not have their cream and sugar in their coffee, they don't really want the coffee. So, coffee plus dairy, or the absolute hardest on your body, are artificial processed creamers, especially the International Delights, those ones that come in the little cups. They never need refrigeration, and I think they last for like 1,000 years. They're fine. You can use them. They're actually flammable, by the way. So for many bodies, this increases dampness, like bloating and mucus and joint stiffness. And then we add sugar or syrups, which spike insulin and lead to crashes and keep your dopamine insulin loop dysregulated. I have a number of clients that just cut out the coffee with those artificial creamers in it, and their blood sugar tremendously regulated. So in ocean terms, we're adding thickener and warm foam to a bay that's already overgrown and shallow, and it starts to get really congested and icky and gross. Which is the perfect segue for the next conversation. Let's have an honest discourse about one thing that a lot of coffee drinkers really lean into with the drinking of the coffee, and that is coffee and pooping. So the way that we describe this is called move the boat and float the boat. Coffee has a cholinergic effect on the gut, which means that it stimulates the vagus nerve gut connection. It triggers the gastric reflex, which is the colon's natural wave of activity when something enters your stomach or your small intestine. And then that wave is what we call peristalsis. And that's the current that gets things moving along. So coffee is very good at peristalsis, or moving the boat. But the philosophy is not only do we need to move the boat, we also need to float the boat. So healthy bowels need both peristalsis, moving the boat, muscular waves that push the stool forward, and moisture that floats the boat. Enough fluids and mucus and oils so that the stool is soft and buoyant. If you only move the boat, but you don't float it, you're going to end up over time with dry, hard stools, straining, hemorrhoids, I have to go, but it hurts feeling. If that is starting to happen, that means that you're getting too yin deficient for coffee. Coffee adds heat to the large intestine. And so while it helps with that move the boat, it can backfire over time. So long-term dependence on coffee to poop can create a colon that only moves with a strong push. It's like you've been outsourcing the muscular job of the colon, and so now it's not going to do it on its own. It can also create those drier stools with more irritation and constipation that paradoxically gets worse without coffee. So in inlet language, your gut is a small inlet off your bigger ocean. And coffee sends a gust of wind that forces boats out of the inlet. But if the inlet is shallow and hot and gunky, that wind eventually does more scraping than helping. So you can think of that coffee as wind. Our goal isn't to shame you for coffee poops. It's to help your inlet regain its own tide, its own rhythm of move the boat, float the boat, without needing a daily storm. Now let's talk about 3 of the metabolic types in Decode Your Dolphin. The first one is the silky shark. Silky sharks are driven and fast and often living on adrenaline. You can think of like a Wall Street stockbroker type, right? They're prone to liver chi stagnation with damp heat, which is kind of code for a little cranky, especially like quick temper, frustration. And they're great at sprinting through life not great at coasting. So coffee for a silky shark can feel like a rocket fuel at first. Over time, it becomes more like lighter fluid on an already hot, irritable ocean, and they might get headaches or tension or anger or sleep issues. When I was back, when I first started in practice, there was a gentleman who was coming to see us who drank like 6 cups of coffee a day. But his thinking was, he was a fireman, and his thinking was, well, it's fine because I finish all of them before noon. We encouraged him to step it down. And as he did so, he realized that his sleep was tremendously improving just because he was taking the pressure off. He was most likely a silky shark, and he was taking the pressure off of that hot, irritable ocean. When coffee stops working for a silky shark, it's usually because the deep currents are exhausted and the liver is congested and the nervous system has been in storm mode for years. The work here is cooling and clearing the water, not adding more waves. Our second group is the octopi. And an octopus is a multitasker. They're usually caregivers or project managers of life. They're very, very capable people. They are usually so capable that they are capably taking care of not only their lives, but maybe a partner with dementia, or maybe a parent with major health issues, or maybe children who need some extra support. And they are experiencing chronic stress, the HPA axis dysregulation, and wired but tired feelings. So they have what we call kidney heart yin depletion with Shin disturbance, which is basically like they've been doing this for a long time. So coffee for an octopus initially helps to juggle all of those arms, but eventually it makes the water choppier. And so the octopus is going to get more anxiety and forgetfulness and afternoon crashes, which does not help them with their mission of taking care of themselves and taking care of others. And usually what happens is that the good-hearted octopus continues to take care of others and then increasingly neglects themselves because they're just running out of energy. They only have so much to go around, and they are very dutiful and they are very good on keeping their word. So they can let it slip to take care of themselves. When coffee stops working for an octopus, it's often because the nervous system is so overstimulated that another jolt just creates static. And dampness has built up from stress eating and poor sleep and irregular meals. So they don't need more yang. They don't need more sunshine, more turbulence. They need a calmer, cleaner sea. And then finally, we have our pufferfish. Pufferfish are hormone sensitive. So oftentimes these are women or men that are in a perimenopause, menopause, estrogen dominance, andropause. That's the gentleman, that's like menopause. They're often prone to bloating and puffiness and mood swings and hot flashes. And they have it all going on. So in the Chinese medicine language, we're going to say that's liver qi stagnation, that's spleen qi deficiency, that's kidney yin and yang imbalance. They're kind of a combination of the silky shark and the octopus. So coffee for a pufferfish can worsen breast tenderness for a lady, or anxiety, or night sweats, or puffiness, and all the rest of those can happen with women or men. It often leads to more insomnia and blood sugar swings because of those dysregulated hormones. And when coffee stops working for a pufferfish, it's because the endocrine tides are changing. The same stimulant that used to trigger a little bit of wind that helped push the sails now triggers storms. And that looks like heat or anxiety or palpitations rather than clean waves of focus. For pufferfish, the invitation is to smooth currents, to clear damp heat, and to support hormone clearance, not to keep whipping the surface. So, what to do? This is the good news. growing up your ocean. If you're realizing your coffee relationship is more storm than support, here are a few gentle shifts that you can explore. One is to feed yin first. That's going to be a warm, protein rich breakfast within about an hour of waking. Hydration with minerals like electrolytes. Early bedtime and guarded sleep. Like you're a princess or a prince. This is your bedtime. And you're deepening the ocean before you ask for waves. If you are someone that has trouble with disrupted sleep at night, let's say you fall asleep okay, but you wake up, build in more time. So as you start to reset, if you've been having to operate on 4 or 5 hours sleep a night and you've kind of scheduled that in, then consider what it might look like if you blocked off 10 or 11 hours. And that way, if you woke up, you were awake for a while during the night, it's no big deal. And then you're going to fall back asleep whenever you do. It's fine. So if there's one day a week that you can pull that off, that is a huge reset to your body. And then allow yourself to wake up without an alarm clock so that you can really get the reset that your body needs. If you do drink coffee, de-weaponize it. Never on a totally empty stomach if you can help it. Choose clean, tested beads when possible to lower the mycotoxin load. Gradually reduce sugar and ultra-processed creamers that build dampness. And consider half calf, or most people tolerate green tea much better than coffee. There are a few people that genetically aren't compatible with green tea. It's rare, but it's out there. Or there's some great mushroom coffees out there these days, or roasted herbal coffee blends. Like there's a dandy tea that's also has that same bitterness. It's a very similar flavor as coffee, but it doesn't have all of these aflatoxins, and it doesn't have all of the dampness that we're looking at. So the third one is going to be to restore natural currents. So move the boat and float the boat. And that might look like gentle morning movement, like a walk or a few minutes of qigong, or even just some hip circles in the kitchen. If all you can do are some hip circles while you're making your coffee, if nothing else is going to change, do that. Fiber from real foods like vegetables or seeds or legumes that your body tolerates. Healthy fats and adequate water to keep your stool moving, right? Move the boat and float the boat. And then number 4 is going to be to honor your marine type. Today, we've talked about 3 of the 7 primary types in the decoder dolphin system. The silky sharks need more cooling, more detox support, more boundaries around work, and real off time. They genuinely need to put their phones down because their nervous systems are like racehorses. They're going to respond very quickly, very strongly, very, very efficiently. And they need to be off duty to not have to have that response. The octopus has nervous system downshifting. One thing at a time blocks in real nourishment. You can think of an octopus as a silky shark who's been on duty for like 15 years. And then finally, the pufferfish. So these are increasing in severity. And the pufferfish is going to need liver support, hormone-friendly habits, less alcohol and sugar, more cruciferous vegetables, and possibly some healthy sweating, like in a sauna. So remember, health is not never drinking coffee. That's not the message of the day. It is health is not needing coffee to be yourself. Health is your ocean having enough depth and coolness, yin, enough motion and warmth, yang, and enough clear water, low damp and toxins, so that a little wave, a cup of coffee, or season of extra effort doesn't flip your whole boat. If you're listening to this and thinking, this is me, my coffee doesn't work and my ocean feels shallow or murky, or I'm a silky shark or octopus or pufferfish who's tired of living on borrowed energy, I want you to know this is a phase, and phases can be decoded and shifted. This is exactly what we do in the Decode Your Dolphin Metabolic Reset. We map your marine type with labs and questionnaires and observation. We look at your yin and your yang and your dampness, and we help you rebuild your depth, clean your currents, and teach your body to make its own energy again. If you'd like to explore that, drop the word ocean in the comments or send me a message, and we'll talk about your next best step. Take a breath with me. Your ocean is wiser than any trend. Let's grow it up gently. Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed putting this presentation together. I will see you in 1 week.